What is up, guys? It is your friendly neighborhood Jingo, and today I've got great news, and that is the fact that One Nation, Australia's populist party, has finally won what is a major election. If you didn't know, Susan Lowe, who was the former leader of the Liberal Party, she resigned and vacated her seat. So this election was meant to be highly contested, and honestly, because One Nation is involved, I feel like there's been a lot of media attention on this election because everybody wanted to see, okay, One Nation are doing really well in the polls. Can they actually do well in a real election? Will those polls translate into real life election results? And it turns out it has. And obviously the left and even the mainstream media are losing their minds over this. So let's quickly have a look at how One Nation did, and we'll go from there.
See some numbers in Albury before we were making this call. Let's look at where we're at overall in this electorate right now. So this is what we said all night, that One Nation needed a swing of at least 25%. They're going well above that. Michelle Milthorpe needed at least 10%. She's going below that. And then we look at the map overall. So yes, if we go broader here, it's no surprise to see the orange. These are the smaller booths. We were expecting something like this, but this has been an outperform. So there's step one, an outperform for One Nation, 60s and even 70s up there. But then we said the big city centre, in particular Albury, will matter. Albury, by far the biggest city in this electorate. And you can see here, not only is it not all strongly purple, it's not even all purple. Let's go here, 52%. So this is Lavington, for example, and you can see there, that's a pretty decent sized booth, 1,289. If we have a look at what's supposed to be happening in the size of the swing, you can see 25%, a big swing to One Nation, and Michelle Milthorpe is underperforming when we look at that. Then when we go as well into Albury proper, Milthorpe, get that lead down, but not enough. This is not something she's going to be able to pull back from here. On the amount of vote in, I'm now willing to say we will see for the first time ever One Nation win a seat in a lower house at a federal election.
Breaking news, One Nation has won the seat of Farrer. It is a huge night in Australian politics. The fringe party on the right has been for so many years now very much in the centre when it comes to the political landscape in Farrer. It's won that seat, Joel Fitzgibbon. Extraordinary moment, really, in Australian politics.
Yeah, but a pretty easy one to predict, I think, Kieran. It was inevitable. They have real momentum at the moment, One Nation. They're attracting a lot of people who, for many different reasons,
and they're reacting to Tom's call there in the room. Celebrating.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, they are growing in number now. Before we had to go to Port, I was just saying.
Well, guys, there you have it. It's the first time they have won a federal lower house seat. So this is remarkable. Honestly, if you think about it, this party was essentially getting like 1% or under of the vote a few years ago. This party wasn't really polling that high. It was just a fringe party. Nobody really cared about One Nation. Obviously, they would funnel votes to the Liberals or whatever. Now, you really got to think about how monumental this is, because this seat was held by the former Liberal Party leader. And yet One Nation, a fringe party, a party that people generally write off as not really going to win anything. I mean, this is the first time they have won a lower house seat. And here they are, they've beaten out an independent that was backed by, I believe, even the climate 200 billionaires, the entire mainstream left, and yeah, they've won the seat. And I think it is very important to say why this is happening. I mean, it should not be a surprise to anybody, really. One Nation is this popular because people feel like they are losing Australia. Australia is changing into something that you may never come back from. The other night you saw at Melbourne Airport hordes and hordes of literal IS supporters, members of a terror organisation going to pick up the returning IS members. Is that really the new Australia that we are meant to look forward to? Are we just meant to ignore the fact that all these changes are happening around us? No, of course not. Now, quick note before we move on, please remember to give the video a like and hit subscribe. The channel is almost entirely fan supported, so if you want to support the work and the mission behind it, consider joining Patreon. That's what keeps the channel alive and gives you early access. It's completely ad-free and long and uncensored videos, written articles, and member-only chats. And I can assure you, it's not that Australians have suddenly become racist or xenophobic or anything like that. But in the past couple of years, and remember, One Nation polling this high is a recent phenomenon. In the past couple of years, since Anthony Albanese has come into power, he has run an insane mass immigration program at levels you couldn't even comprehend. When people are going through the cost of living crisis, there aren't enough homes as is. Remember, housing was already expensive before this happened. Housing was a problem that needed to be solved. And yet, the people who were elected, they decided to make the matter even worse. For what benefit? To benefit the billionaire class, the corporations that lower wages of the average worker, to benefit large universities, to benefit visa schools, to benefit all of that. And so that the GDP growth numbers would be in the 0.whatever% every quarter, and they can be like, oh yeah, the economy is growing. When in fact, GDP per capita is not growing. It's fallen, and it's going backward. In fact, we are in a GDP per capita recession as of right now. People aren't getting any richer, they're getting poorer, and this is the backlash. One nation is the backlash. And immigration, I know the left, they really love to pretend like immigration is not a very big issue. You know, they pretend like if they just ignore this and focus on other buzzwords and, I don't know, transgender surgeries or whatever it is that their policies generally are, that things are going to be fine. And yet the electorate, it is very clear to me, the electorate does not seem to think so. And you can see very clearly how the left reacted to this. Just have a watch. This is the ABC, so the taxpayer-funded national broadcaster. This is them. This is how they reacted.
A big and dangerous mistake to legitimise one nation and to embolden one nation. Here we've had Angus Taylor make a deliberate decision to preference one nation above the independent, which tonight could really be one of the reasons they get across the line. We'll see as the votes come through, but that will be key. And that will legitimise them, and I used the term earlier on in the broadcast, the permission structure. If they are able to win their first lower house seat, that begins the process of legitimising them. And in other electorates where they may run, voters thinking, well, it's happened before, it's normal now. You start normalising something, and in fact, a big and dangerous mistake.
So these people are mad that the Liberal Party preferenced one nation. So what are they saying? The Liberals, who are meant to be the so-called conservative opposition, you know, the centre-right opposition. So they're meant to preference the left wing so that one nation who clearly have the support of the electorate there, they're meant to preference the left wing. How does that represent the will of the people who actually live in that electorate? That's insane. These people are so delusional. They live in a fantasy world where they believe the conservative opposition party, which has been absolutely destroyed, they're almost facing extinction because people in this country don't believe the Liberal Party represent them anymore. And yet a lot of these people, you know, like this person from the ABC and even a lot of left-wing commentators, they're like, you know what, the Liberal Party, the only conservative, the major conservative party in Australia, how they should win over voters is to become even more left-wing. They should abandon all their principles, they should abandon their mission, and just become left-wing. But this is just the most retarded talking point, because why would the average left-wing voter vote for the Conservative Party that has now adopted some left-wing policies over just voting for the existing left-wing parties? That is insanity. And yet these people don't think like that. Their plan, in my opinion, is to essentially steer the Conservative Liberal Party in a direction where they could never come back. So imagine the Liberals, they adopt those left-wing policies. No one's going to vote for them. Their right-wing base are going to abandon them even more and go towards one nation, and they're just going to go extinct. Plan accomplished, I guess. And that is why people don't even bother anymore. They're like, fuck the Liberals. We're just going to vote for one nation because immigration is the big issue, and this party is the only party that we feel like are willing to do anything about it. Now, of course, they might not win the entire election. Pauline Hanson is unlikely to become Prime Minister. And at the same time, if they become a major opposition and suddenly have a lot of power, then of course they can impact change in this country. They will be able to impact immigration. Labor, if they win, they'll need to cut deals. And perhaps they'll have to share power with the Liberal Party, for example. And in that case, yeah, if people wanted one nation to essentially go in there and ensure that immigration numbers are low, then that's what's going to happen. And yet these people don't accept that. And this is not just hyperbole or anything like that. This is Kos Samaras, who is one of the most famous pollsters in the country, and he essentially works for the Labor Party. So he has a lot of their internal numbers. And here he is telling you the truth about what the new immigrants, especially since Albanese came into power, what they vote for. Just have a listen.
These communities are still evolving. They're still bringing family over. They're still trying to do what our parents did when they came over here and, from Europe. It took them 10, 15 years to fully bring everyone over, right? Or make that decision. So that family reunion process is not completed for these people when they say they feel attacked.
That sounds obvious to me once you explain it to me. But why does the Liberal Party continue doing it?
These communities are still evolving. They're still bringing.
So essentially what Kos Samaras is saying is that the number one issue for these new migrants is family reunification. So essentially chain migration. So they want to bring over their parents, their cousin, their uncle, their brother, whoever it is, they want to bring all of them over once they're here. Once they get their permanent residency, that's all they want. And that is what they're voting for. So of course, they're going to vote for the Labor Party who's going to offer them this option. Now, if you recall, Kos Samaras is the person I showed you guys in a video a few days ago, where he said the vast majority of Indian immigrants to Australia, so something like 80 to 90% of Indian immigrants to Australia vote Labor. And now that he said this, you can make that connection. Why are they voting for the Labor Party? It's not because of racism or anything like that. It's because they know the Labor Party is going to enable them to bring over their entire family. So this is chain migration, essentially. And on his point about the Greek and Italian migrants, so Kos Samaras is a Greek gentleman. If you compare the numbers of Greek and Italian migrants in the past 100 years to Australia and compare that to the number of Indian immigrants to Australia in the past 5 or 6 years, the number of Indian immigrants is significantly higher. That is an insane statistic, isn't it? So I don't feel like this comparison makes sense at all, genuinely. How does that work? Because what we're talking about now is essentially hundreds of thousands, almost every year coming into Australia. They're driving up the cost of houses, they're lowering wages, and a vast number of these people aren't skilled. In that other video of mine, I showed you guys the data there. These people who are coming in, they're not building houses, they're not skilled migrants, the vast majority of them are students, and even out of that, I feel like the vast majority aren't even genuine students. They're not here to study. They are here to work while they're studying fake degrees. You can see this all around you. All these migrants, all these students, all they're doing is essentially working Uber and sending money overseas. That's all they're doing. That does not benefit Australia in any way. That is not in the best interest of people like you or people like me. It is an immigration culture of take. It is not an immigrant culture, what we have seen in the past decades, where immigrants who come into this country, what they want is not to immediately get on benefits. What they want is to build a new life and give back to this country and build this country, add to this country. This new Albo wave, that is not what is happening. We all know this. And yet if we call this out, we're the bad guys. And yet we all know why Albanese and all these guys are doing this. On top of the fake GDP growth, it is because these new migrants, as you can see from their own pollsters' mouth, you can see that these are new voters and they're essentially trying to build a new voter base that essentially makes them the permanent government if they bring in enough people. Now, of course, I'm very much looking forward to the upcoming elections, including the state election in Victoria, where we'll see how well One Nation can do on top of all this momentum that they have right now. And I think big changes are coming to Australia. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Look guys, that's all I had for today. If you enjoyed that video, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment your thoughts down below. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.